Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the South Fork. We're trying a lot of new things this morning. But what remains the same is that as Unitarian Universalists, we come together in worship each week to honor what is of worth. In this hour, we pause the rush and flow of our everyday lives in reverence and in thanksgiving, to connect with what is sacred, to remember our commitments to each other and to our world. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your name for the sacred, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome to bring your full self here. I am the Reverend Kimberly Quinn Johnson. Our musician this morning is Abby Fleming. Our tech hosts this morning are Kent Martin and Carl Wittenberg. We have hearing-assisted devices, if that will be helpful for you in the meeting house. Closed captioning, if that is helpful for you joining us on Zoom. This is also a good time to silence your devices, either here or at home. I was going to say, unless you are waiting for a very important announcement, and it seems as if that very important announcement has come, but it is not mine to tell yet. So we welcome you into this hour free from distractions. You will find announcements in your printed order of service and in the link in your chat. I want to remind you that next Sunday at 4 p.m., the UU congregation at Southhold will be having their grand reopening building dedication. You might remember that 10 years ago, their building caught fire, and it has taken them this long to rebuild, and they have done it. And so we are welcome and invited to join in their celebration next week as they rededicate their new building. We also have an announcement from our high impact community outreach team, which we can expect every month, but David Holstein will share with us this month.
Good morning. As Reverend Kimberly thank you. As Reverend Kimberly said, I'm Dave Holstein. And today I'd like to tell you about our High Impact Community Outreach Program, affectionately known as HICO. It's our congregation's efforts to reach out to our neighbors and with generosity and put our faith, our UU values into action. Our weekly e-bulletin has highlighted the groups and projects we are supporting this year. The info is also on the bulletin board and on our website. So today, I would like to tackle a simple question. How do you define success for HICO? Perhaps the easiest way is just numbers. HICO is 5 years old. It's made 35 grants to 26 different nonprofits, and the total amount we've given away is $211,000. Each grantee has introduced themselves to this congregation and has provided an evaluation of their efforts and their projects. Another metric is notoriety and reputational. We are successfully getting our efforts published and shared by the media. More importantly, our 5-year history means that the UU congregation of the South Fork is well known, recognized, and appreciated as an important funder for this community. The East End, despite its wealth, is known as a funding desert. So HICO is extremely important. Next, are we meeting our community's needs? We have a focus each year for our grants. This focus helps drive our decisions and allows us to touch different areas of perceived needs, such as food insecurity, mental health, education, advocacy, equity, and elder care. And what's our impact? Many things are easy to measure, like providing resources to food pantries. But the congregation should be especially proud of our funding grassroots organizations that have blossomed. We were early funders of OLA's mental health efforts for Latinx youth, as well as their providing free legal services for immigrants. The Sound Justice Initiative, helped by our funding, went from a concept of providing college classes in the Riverhead jails to receiving a $300,000 three-year commitment from Suffolk County. HICO has funded trauma training for leaders of the iTry organization to better work with middle schoolers struggling in the aftermath of COVID. Finally, has the congregation found community with our neighbors? Do we feel a connection? Is HICO working as a vehicle of local generosity and social activism? For the PAC members, the answer is yes. We work to spread the word in many ways. But our actions, our focus, our engagement, our generosity of spirit as well as money depends on everyone. The PAC is Laura Tucker, Celia Josephson, Michael Daly, and myself. Come and share your thoughts and dreams. We are all in this together. Thank you.
Thank you to David, Celia, Michael, and Laura, and everybody here who makes that grant possible. Do we have any visitors who would like to introduce yourselves this morning? Ellie from Boston, who attends the Theodore Parker Church in West Roxbury. Thank you. Welcome for joining us. If you are joining us here in the meeting house, oh, maybe we have more?
Hi. Can you hear me?
We can hear you on the phone.
Good morning, Reverend Kimberly and everyone. It's Barbara.
Welcome.
Morning. Thank you.
If you are joining us here in the meeting house or online, we invite you, welcome you, encourage you to sign our guest book using the book in our fellowship hall or the link in your chat. It's a way that we can stay in touch with you and learn a little bit more about who you are. Another way that we do that very briefly in the beginning of our service is to greet your neighbor or someone you haven't yet greeted this morning. We light our chalice this morning with these words from Erica Hewitt. Some of us are bringing our best selves to this space, and some of us are bringing our struggling selves, including pieces we might be ashamed of. All of us are welcome here. And all of us are loved. Some of us already have open hearts, and some of us aren't quite there yet because our hearts have gotten a little beat up this week and we might have forgotten how to trust and open. Your heart is welcome here, no matter how bruised. We welcome you among us. All of us are imperfect, but we are here to drop our defenses and trust that what happens in worship is powerful and life-giving. Together we affirm that this day and our being together can make each of us better, each of us braver, more compassionate, and wiser than when we woke up this morning. We welcome you here. Our first song to sing together this morning, I wonder if we might try this as a round, is in your gray hymnal, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. We haven't practiced it as a round, but Kent is so skilled, and Pam is going to help. Join if you feel willing or able as we sing together, Come, Come, Whoever You Are.
Great job.
So our first message this morning is a story. I previewed this whole concept of the service to the Stony Brook congregation last year, and their director of religious education found what I think is a perfect story for us, for what we want to think about this morning. It's called The Bad Case of the Stripes. It's written by David Shannon, but the illustrations are so interesting, I didn't want you to miss out on them. And so I think I might just jump in and we will catch up as I slowly get myself ready for this page. Camilla Cream loved lima beans. Lima beans. But she never ate them. All of her friends hated lima beans, and she wanted to fit in. Today she was fretting even more than usual. It was the first day of school, and she couldn't decide what to wear. There were so many people to impress. She tried on, and I kid you not, 42 outfits. None seemed quite right. She put on a pretty red dress. I put on a pretty red dress. And looked into the mirror, and then, she screamed. Her mother ran into the room, and then she, screamed also. "Oh, my heavens," she cried. "You're completely covered in stripes." This was certainly true. Camilla was striped from head to toe. She looked like a rainbow. Mrs. Cream felt Camilla's forehead. "Do you feel all right?" she asked. "I feel fine," Camilla answered. "But just look at me." "You get right back into bed this instant," her mother ordered. "You're not going to school today." Camilla was relieved. She didn't want to miss the first day of school, but she was afraid of what the other kids would say. And she had no idea what to wear with crazy stripes. That afternoon, Dr. Bumble came to examine Camilla. "Most extraordinary," he exclaimed. "I've never seen anything like it. Are you having any coughing, sneezing, runny nose, aches or pains, chills, hot flashes, dizziness, drowsiness, shortness of breath, uncontrollable twitching? No, Camilla told him. I feel fine. Well then, Dr. Bumble said, turning to Mrs. Cream, I don't see any reason why she shouldn't go to school tomorrow. Here's some ointment that should help clear up those stripes. If it doesn't, you know where to find me. And off he went. The next day was a disaster. Everyone at school laughed at Camilla. They called her Camilla Crayon and Night of the Living Lollipop. She tried her best to act as if everything was normal. But when the class said the Pledge of Allegiance, her stripes turned red, white, and blue, and she broke out in stars. The other kids thought this was great. One yelled out, "Let's see some purple polka dots." Soon enough, Camilla turned all purple polka dotty. Someone else shouted, "Checkerboard!" and a pattern of squares covered her skin. Soon everyone was calling out different shapes and colors, and poor Camilla was changing faster than you can change the channels on a TV. That night, Mr. Harms, the school principal, called. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Cream," he said. "I'm going to have to ask you to keep Camilla home from school. She's too much of a distraction. And I've been getting calls from other parents. They're afraid the stripes might be catching." Camilla was so embarrassed. She couldn't believe that 2 days ago, everyone liked her. Now, nobody wanted to be in the same room with her. Her father tried to make her feel better. "Is there anything I can get you, sweetheart?" he asked. "No, thank you," Camilla sighed. What she really wanted was a nice plate of lima beans. But she had been laughed at enough for one day. Well, yes, I see. Oh, I'm skipping a page. Here we go. No, I didn't. Am I skipping a page? I feel like I've lost something in the story, but we'll keep going. Well, yes, I see, Dr. Bumble mumbled when Mr. Cream phoned the next day. "I think I'd better bring the specialist. We'll be right over." About an hour later, Dr. Bumble arrived with 4 in large coats. He introduced them to the Creams. "This is Dr. Grop, Dr. Sponge, Dr. Cricket, and Dr. Young." Then the specialist went to work on Camilla. They squeezed and jabbed, tapped and tested. It was very uncomfortable. "Well, it's not the mumps," concluded Dr. Grop. "Or the measles," said Dr. Sponge. "Definitely not chicken pox," put in Dr. Cricket. "Or sunburn," said Dr. Young. "Try these," said the specialist. They each handed her a bottle filled with different colored pills. "Take one of each before bed," said Dr. Grop. And then they filed out the front door, all followed by Dr. Bumble. That night, Camilla took her medicine, and it was awful. When she woke up the next morning, she did feel different. But when she got dressed, her clothes didn't fit right. She looked in the mirror, and there, staring back at her, was a giant, multicolored pill with her face on it. Dr. Bumble rushed over as soon as Mrs. Cream called, but this time, instead of the specialist, he brought the experts. Dr. Gord and Mr. Mellon were the first scientific minds, the finest scientific minds in the land. Once again, Camilla was poked and prodded, looked at and listened to. The experts wrote down lots of numbers. And then they huddled together and they whispered. Dr. Gord finally spoke. "It might be a virus," he announced. Oh, I should announce that with authority. "It might be a virus," he announced with authority. Suddenly, fuzzy little virus balls appeared all over Camilla. "Or possibly a form of bacteria," said Mr. Mellon. Out popped squiggly little bacteria tails. "Could be a fungus," added Dr. Gord. Instantly, Camilla was covered in different colored fungus blotches. The experts looked at Camilla, then at each other. "We need to go over these numbers again back at the lab," Dr. Gord explained. "We'll call you when we know something." But the experts didn't have a clue or a cure. By now, the TV news had found out about Camilla. Reporters from every channel were outside her house telling the story of the bizarre case of the incredible changing child. Soon, huge crowds camped out on the front lawn. The creams were swamped with all kinds of remedies from psychologists and allergists, herbalists, nutritionists, psychics, an old medicine man, a guru, even a veterinarian. Each so-called cure only added to poor Camilla's strange appearance until it was hard to even recognize her. She sprouted roots and berries and crystals and feathers and a long furry tail, but nothing worked. One day, a woman who called herself an environmentalist claimed that she could cure Camilla. "Close your eyes," she said. "Breathe deeply and become one with the room." "I wish you hadn't said that," groaned Camilla. Slowly, she started to melt into the walls of her room. Her bed became her mouth, her nose was a dresser, the two paintings were her eyes. The therapist screamed and she fled the house. "What are we going to do?" cried Mrs. Cream. "It just keeps getting worse and worse," she began to sob. At that moment, Mr. Cream heard a quiet little knock on the front door. He opened it, and there stood an old woman who was just as plump and sweet as a strawberry. "Excuse me," she said brightly, "but I think I can help." She went into Camilla's room and looked around. "My goodness," she said with a shake of her head. "What we have here is a bad case of the stripes. One of the worst I've ever seen." She pulled out a container of small green beans from her bag. "Here," she said. "These might do the trick." "Are these magic beans?" asked Mrs. Cream. "Oh, my, no," she replied. "There's no such thing. These are just plain old lima beans." "I bet you'd like some, wouldn't you?" she asked Camilla. Camilla really, really wanted a big, heaping plateful of lima beans more than anything, and she was still afraid to admit it. "Yuck," she said. "No one likes lima beans, especially me." "Oh dear," said the old woman sadly. "I guess I was wrong about you." She put the beans back in her bag and started toward the door. Camilla watched the old woman walk away. Those beans sure would taste good. And being laughed at for eating them was nothing compared to what she was already going through. She couldn't stand it anymore. "Wait," she cried. The truth is, I love lima beans." "I thought so," said the woman. She took a handful of beans and popped them into Camilla's mouth. "Mmm," said Camilla. Suddenly, the branches, feathers, squiggly tails all began to disappear. Then the whole room swirled around, and when it stopped, there stood Camilla, and everything was back to normal. "I'm cured!" she shouted. "Yes," said the old woman. "I knew the real you was in there somewhere." She patted Camilla on the head, and then she went outside and vanished into the crowd. Afterward, Camilla wasn't quite the same. Some of the kids at school said she was weird, but she didn't care one bit. She ate all the lima beans she wanted, and she never, ever had even a touch of the case of stripes again. May your roots grow deep, may your branches spread far, may you find the world to be a wonderful place with lima beans abound, and make it better for those who follow. We receive here at the Meeting House 2 collections. In a moment, when I finish talking and the music starts to play, the pink basket that is passed around holds the gift that sustained this congregation and this meeting house. The blue basket that passes around is for your collection to our Helping Hand Fund. Our Helping Hand Fund helps local organizations in need. A portion of that goes to our minister's discretionary fund, which helps individuals in immediate need. However much you are able to give, it will be gratefully received. Thank you, and thank you for all of your gifts. I'm going to move things around a little from our order of service. Each week we use time in our service together to share our deep joy, concern, and sorrows for the world. We offer our prayers with and to and for each other for the unmitigated joy of new life, even as we hold our sorrow from loss, from estrangement, from people who are not as kind as we would want them to be. And we remember what is possible when we are in community together, for all that we hold and share and give. may you be held by the warmth of this community into the week to come. I think we will perhaps skip our reading and sing together from your gray hymnal, number 121, We'll Build a Land. So I hear this question often enough here. Why aren't there more people here? This is great. We are amazing. We're doing great work in the community. We're lovely people. Why aren't there more people here? I have a story because I want to talk about evangelism. So some of you know some mornings go and I walk to the ocean and I sit at the beach, and this is part of my spiritual practice. One morning in the early spring, maybe late winter, I'm sitting and it's not cold, so I think I'm there for a while. At some point, I notice a woman walking by with her dog, and I'm still sitting there and I'm just communing with the ocean and the sand, and I'm listening to music in my ear. But then I see the woman coming back my way, and I think I've been here for quite some time. I should leave. And so I start to get up and leave the beach, and I'm wearing my headphones, but something tells me to turn around. And she had been trying to get my attention, and she leans in and says to me, "I hope you don't take this the wrong way." But can I pray for you? Something is telling me to pray for you. And I'm actually delighted. I don't take this the wrong way at all, and I tell her, no, that's totally fine. That's actually what I have been doing here on the beach. Sometimes I call it prayer, sometimes I call it meditation. I just said, that's actually what I have been doing here on the beach. I'm a Unitarian Universalist minister of the congregation in Bridgehampton. Now, she also is delighted. She does offer a prayer, and then she starts to tell me about her church. She goes to the Presbyterian Church in East Hampton, and she invites me there on Sunday morning and tells me about the different programs they have. Bible study on Wednesday night, they have a women's group, they have some other thing, and I'm just thinking, this is a lot. I'm probably not going to do these things because I'm at my own church on Sunday morning and I have things to do. But I appreciate the offer. And as we part ways, I'm thinking to myself, wow, that was nice. I can't imagine anybody from my own congregation doing the same thing. Why don't we do more of that? Why don't we do more of that? So here's where I tell you, my lima beans aren't lima beans, they're beets. But also, they have been church, or worship, or congregation, or faith. I don't think of myself as an evangelist. I used to not think of myself as an evangelist. I think we have an idea of what we think an evangelist is, right? It's like a soapbox preacher. We think about Carrie Nation, maybe that prohibitionist from the 19th century. Carrie Nation, who inspired signs that said, every nation welcome, except Carrie. Or maybe we think about the door-to-door Jehovah's Witnesses or the Mormons, who everybody tries to get away from. Or if you're a little younger or more urban, less obnoxious, more sedate, Fruits of Islam selling like bean pies and the Final Call. Or televangelists, Tammy Faye and Jim Baker, Tammy Faye of the big hair and the makeup, who by the end of their career were pretty roundly mocked and ridiculed. We have an idea of who and what evangelists are, and they are those people, not us, because we are more contained. Right? We're not a spectacle. We let our actions speak for us. Or we are also possibly so worried about what others might think of us. Worried about what others might think of us to stop them on the street or the beach or the grocery store. Or around the Thanksgiving table, that we are unable to really fully be ourselves and share our beliefs and share what has brought us so much in our lives. While it is true that actions may speak as loud as words, sometimes we need our words to help people make the connection between our actions in the world and who we are and what we have to offer. Or, let's try this one on for size. Maybe the reason none of us are out there telling everybody about Unitarian Universalism is because all of our friends and family are already Unitarian Universalists. I didn't think so. So then why not? when I think of my own self, I do sometimes, but not always, invite people here. 20 years ago, when I was first becoming a Unitarian Universalist, it was a little case of the stripes. I didn't know how to talk about religion, especially for myself, when I had been so, again, I'm in my 20s, so obnoxiously anti-religious before. But today my reasons are slightly different. And here's where I want to say, sometimes I will say a thing and people will worry that it's about them. Sometimes I will say a thing and people will be sure that it can't possibly be about them. Almost everything I say, somewhere in between. So take this with as many grains of salt as you need. Sometimes I don't invite people either to this Unitarian Universalist congregation or to another one that I might be visiting. I visit friends or family in other parts of the world, and often I will go to the local UU congregation. But I am sometimes reluctant to invite my people because I don't always know how they will be received. I can't always be sure that they will feel welcome because of hardly ever explicit, but sometimes uncomfortably implicit ways that we sort of racialize other people. The calling people of the different names, all of the dark people are called the same name, or you mistake one dark person for another, or everybody wants to talk to me about gospel music or sports or black musicians. Or the actually not subtle religious intolerance that we find in our congregations for people who are more theist, who believe more strongly in God, who worship in a more exuberant way, who have no problem with Jesus or miracles. Would they find themselves welcome here? I can't always be sure. There is also a kind of cliquishness that may start as a real delight and joy in being together with our friends and beloveds that we may only see once a week. But to a person who is visiting, feels like a closed circle that they don't know how to enter. So there are all kinds of reasons why I may not, do not always invite people into Unitarian Universalist spaces. Sometimes it's just not comfortable. People are lovely. You all here are lovely. And also, it is not always comfortable to be the only black person in the room. There are things we can do about that, or maybe not. On the other end of the spectrum, aside from the end of, oh, people may not be welcome, we also sometimes just don't want to be pushy. We don't want to go around proselytizing, and for good reason. Many of us have experiences, are probably retreating from experiences of a personal religious history or family or community where we have rejected what is the capital T truth. Because we are skeptics, because we want to engage reason with our faith, because we believe a different thing. So we then don't want to be the ones who try to push our own beliefs on someone else. What even would our capital truth be for a religion, a faith, a belief like ours, that claims pluralism, right? A multiplicity, a diversity of perspectives. Who do we even say we are? How do we even describe for people what Unitarian Universalism is? I wonder if you have heard this joke. What do you get when you cross a Jehovah's Witness with a Unitarian Universalist? Somebody who shows up at the door and doesn't know why they're there. That is exactly it. Somebody who shows up at your door doesn't know why they're there. Yeah. It is a funny joke, and also, oof. But I want to offer you a different way of thinking about evangelizing. Because evangelizing is not the same as proselytizing. When we're proselytizing, we are trying to convert somebody to our way of thinking. We are trying to convince someone, be it religion or politics or a new diet. I get it. I get a lot of unsolicited advice, vitriolic opinion. I do not want to contribute to that noise. But how about this? Have you had the experience of a great sale, or a movie or a TV show or a hiking trail or a vacation spot that you have loved? Do you share that with other people? If you share the good news of a hiking trail, why would you then not share the good news of this amazing life-saving faith? This community. We think of evangelism as sharing the gospel, and people have sort of did the slippage between gospel and truth. But those roots of gospel, God's spiel, is good word. When we share the gospel, we are sharing the good word. And I wonder if you think of it that way, can you share the good word of Unitarian Universalism? I want to give you another scenario. You are minding your own business. You start a new beauty product. This is not gender specific. We all have our beauty routines. Or an exercise routine, it's running or yoga or meditation or a new diet. You've cut out alcohol or meat or gluten. Whatever you have done, you are looking and feeling amazing. You are content and peaceful in the world, and people are noticing, and they ask you, what's your secret? So I want to ask you again. You have done this amazing thing for yourself, and you feel better. It has made your life better. And people can tell. And they ask you, what's your secret? Do you tell them? You would tell them. Here's the final thing. We're going to go over, but this feels I want to do anyway. Because even when we get through all the hurdles, we're going to answer people when they ask. We're even willing to go out and tell people when they don't ask. But what in the world do we tell them? What can we say about this faith of many perspectives, of open beliefs? What can we say of a people who don't proclaim one single truth, who embrace this kind of diversity? And so I want you to try something with me right now. You have paper in your order of service. Maybe you don't need it. It's a UU elevator speech version of Two Truths and a Lie. Two statements and an invitation. Can you, in one sentence, say who we are? Maybe you can think of it in your head. In one sentence, who we are. In the second sentence, what we offer. Who are we? What do we offer? Doesn't have to be grandiose. It doesn't have to be 1,000% complete. You just have to hit the mark. Third sentence is an invitation. When we did our UU elevator speeches a couple weeks ago, this is one of the ones. Love and connection is at the center of what we do. We're all connected to each other and the earth itself, and because of that, we work for justice, grounded in love. I would love for you to visit us on a Sunday morning and see what we're about. It's that third part that's really hard. I would love for you to visit us on a Sunday morning and see what we're about. I hear so many stories, probably more than most of us, stories of people, queer youth who have found acceptance in our spaces. Parents of trans children who have found a community of support. A person struggling with addiction or depression who has found a kind heart and an open mind. A person in prison who has found forgiveness and hope. I have heard these stories of how this faith has actually saved lives. I have my own story of how this faith offered me a way back to myself when I didn't even know that I was lost. This faith that reminds me every week, every day, the best of what is possible. And that challenges me every day, sometimes every hour, to be the best of what is possible. To love even when it seems impossible, even when the person clearly does not love me or mean well for my life. I imagine that you have your own stories of what this faith has brought you, of what this community has brought you, of how being a Unitarian Universalist has simply made your life better. We need to tell our stories. You need to tell your story. To let your life, your good living, be a testimony, but also to let your words share the good news. To let your light shine. Let's sing together this one last time in your gray hymnal, This Little Light of Mine. It should be number 118. This little light of mine. Our closing words come from the Unitarian Transcendentalist minister Theodore Parker. Be ours a religion which, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space. Its shrine, the good heart. Its creed, all truth. Its ritual, works of love. Its profession of faith, divine living. We extinguish our chalice, again trying a new thing with the unison words in your order of service. John Andrews has asked us to think about, to consider our claim to the light of truth as we extinguish our chalice. And I agree with him. For a faith that does not claim one single truth, what else might we hold as we part from each other? John suggested instead the light of wisdom. And so you'll see that change in your order of service. Let's try it for a while and see how it feels. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of wisdom, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Please remain seated for our postlude.